Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Damn Podcast. I'm your host, Angie Machado. Joined with me, as always, BeaverBlitz contributor Ty Boice and BeaverBlitz beat writer Jake Hedberg. Fellas, how are we doing on this fine Monday?
Perfect.
Perfect. Well, the show is going to be probably a little shorter. This is a bye week. Typically, we take bye weeks off, but we did want to come to you and just, if you guys have comments, please put them in the comments section. If you're watching us live, we do have a damn question at the end from the lodge. But I thought after that Cal beatdown, it was going to be important for us to kind of reconvene and just kind of talk about what we saw, just our thoughts on that, the lack of offensive performance. But I also thought it was going to be a big day too to talk recruiting. Oregon State picked up 3 commitments over the past week. And I think it's just a good time. We haven't really dove in and talked about where the Beavs are at right now, where they're going, kind of remaining needs. And I think there's a lot of more casual fans out there that aren't on BeaverBlitz that listen to us that would kind of benefit from hearing where the Beavs are at. Sound good, guys?
Yep.
Okay. So, Cal. That was ugly quick. Cal scored 14 points in the first 6 minutes of that game. There weren't a lot of bright spots. I do think one bright spot after all of the struggles that the defense has had, Cal was given had short fields 4 different times during the game inside on Beaver territory. Oregon State defense held them to 3 field goals and only 1 touchdown. So I think if we're going to look for small moral victories, there's one. But let's just start with Jake. What are your just overall thoughts?
Yeah, the start of the game definitely, that the end of that first drive kind of summed up the day for Oregon State, that freak touchdown. I mean, just nothing went right for the Beavers, from the whole really the first 3 quarters, couldn't get anything going offensively, got that touchdown at the end to keep the 0 off the board, but it's really nothing went right. This is kind of the game where you watch it once to see what went wrong, then you just flush it down the drain, forget it ever happened, and move on to San Jose State.
Were you surprised, Ty, by the lack of offensive output on that game?
Yes and no. I mean, I thought that we would compete where there were times where it looked like, maybe we weren't as ready to play as we would have liked to have been. Where we've been a gritty team, we've been a scrappy team, whereas it maybe looked like there was a little bit less fight,
So I looked at this yesterday while I was writing That's What She Said article that runs Mondays. Cal is a veteran team. And this was one, I think, at the beginning of the year that people were kind of saying, well, Cal could be sneaky good because they had such a veteran team. Oregon State is super young. I mean, we've talked about it, but I went through and looked at, especially the defense. 5 of the 11 starters are freshmen, true freshmen. That's a huge, that's a lot of inexperience there. 11 of the 22 players that actually played snaps on defense were underclassmen. So I do think that comes into play. But offensively, Cal came in with a game plan to shut down Oregon State's run game. And that is going to be the MO, I think, from here on out. And it worked too well. McCoy passed for 3 yards. Giovanni McCoy passed for 3 yards before being replaced late in the second quarter by Ben Gulbranson. Do we have a quarterback battle once again?
Yes. I think what we've seen in the last couple of weeks specifically, at this point, the Beavers have played 8 games and they have 4 passing touchdowns.
So bad.
That's something that I've never seen. Oregon State's averaging less than 185 yards per game through the air, and that the offense is one-dimensional at times. If teams shut down the run, Oregon State can't win through the air, and that's where I think we're going to get to see Ben Gulbranson go out there and get a shot to show what he can do. I'm expecting Ben Gorbranson to start. I don't know anything like concrete, but it's just kind of a gut feeling that I have is that Ben Gobranson's going to get the start next Saturday.
Ty, and it's hard. I wish we could watch, the end zone footage of film. How much of this is quarterback struggle? How much of this is protection problems? How much of this is receivers?
You kind of cut out there a little bit, but I think you said how much this is quarterback protection, and then you said receivers. I don't really understand that because, again, we don't have that vantage point. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think even for the layman's, you're seeing like slower developing routes, and you're seeing stuff a little bit further down the field. I don't know if that's because we play behind the sticks or because we play behind, on the scorecard. So I don't really know. It's just so easy to point fingers at personnel and to coaches, and maybe that's accurate. I mean, as fans, we're the ones that buy the tickets, and people are certainly entitled to their opinions. I tend to always be uber positive, and this one's tough. It's tough. I think it's just to answer like what you asked Jake. Is there a quarterback controversy? Absolutely. If you're San Jose State listening, like good, prepare for. Go back and have to watch tape from 2022 and watch tape from 2024 and prepare for both those quarterbacks.
So I mean, we talked about, I know going back to August and even spring when we were watching quarterbacks, battle. I remember I said my two biggest concerns heading into this season was defensive line and quarterback play. Giovanni McCoy struggled a lot of fall camp, but do you guys remember back in August, like Ben Gorbranson would win one day, and then Bari would win a day, then Vonnie would win a day. Do you think we're back to this next week going to be kind of open competition during practice?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see all three of those guys get an opportunity. I think they're going to be more focused on getting Giovanni and Ben rather than Jabari. I just think he's still a step behind. I think that's kind of why we saw more of Ben Gorbranson rather than Jabari last Saturday. But yeah, I'm expecting them both to split snaps in practice. I wish we could go to practice and see it, but that's kind of my gut feeling is that it's going to be the two of those guys practicing pretty equally, and then whichever one has the better, however many practices, 6, 7, 8 practices they've got before next Saturday is going to get to take that first snap. And in my mind, I think that it's going to be Ben Gorbranson.
Yeah, so lots of comments, and I added this week is we're not just going live on YouTube, we're going live on Twitter as well. So I think that's helped. We have a lot of people watching right now. So if you have questions or comments, please make sure to put them in the comment section. We've got a couple. Let's see. We had Bennett, Kanoa, Markley. Ben looked good and gave our offense a spark. Did you guys think there was a spark, or did you think that maybe he just threw the ball a little better?
Certainly in the same way that there was a spark when Chance Nolan replaced it's been a long time. Yeah, certainly there was a spark in that regard. Now the longevity of it is where it becomes, the ability to run the offense for 4 quarters,
Ryan Platt, he said that the offensive line played terrible, but he also said they just don't attack downfield to keep defenses honest. And that's something we've seen all year. Yeah, there's no deep threat.
I know PFF has access to it. If you want to take a look at that at some point, Angie, I would be very curious to see how many passes Oregon State's thrown where the ball has gone farther than 20 yards. I feel like it's been a lot of quick outs, slants, just getting primarily Trent Walker the ball quickly.
And of those 20 yards or more gains, how much of those were because of yards after the catch, which hasn't been a crazy amount of numbers, but even that, I think that those percentages drop even more.
I think with PFF, you can see how far the ball travels, like on throws where the ball's thrown 20 yards or farther. I know they do that in the NFL, but I believe there's a way to look at it because it does seem like there's been a lack of deep shots. I remember the one to David Wells against Idaho State, the flea flicker to Trent Walker against San Diego State, and then the flea flicker back to Clemens last weekend or 2 weekends ago. And then I think there was one this weekend when Gorbranson hit Taz Reddix, and then he took a shot or two that he missed. But
so I'm looking right now. I jumped onto our PFF. So Giovanni McCoy has completed 8 of 19 over 20 yards. He's completed 1 of 5 outside left, 3 of 7 between the numbers, and 4 of 7 outside right.
Okay. So that's 19 attempts in 8 games. That's 2 or 3 passes 20 yards or farther per game, and that's not
going to get it done.
It's not going to get it done because it's, as a defense, you see those tendencies, you recognize it, you key in, you play tight coverage where it makes it tougher for the quarterback to complete those quick passes, and then they keep the box stacked, and it's an easy way to stuff the defense if you can't push the ball down the field. Exactly.
With those, with what you hope is a consistent threatening run game, you hope that starts making the safeties be compromised.
So the run game, we saw a little more of Salahuddin Allah, again, a true freshman. How much are the Beavers missing Jam Griffin right now?
A lot. I mean, I feel like the way Jam complimented Hankerson was just perfect. I mean, it was like not a thunder and lightning type duo, but it was like they both have different styles of play. And don't get me wrong, I think Salahuddin Allah is a great player and he has a really bright future. He's still really young. He's still playing his first really serious Division I football. So it's going to take time for him to get kind of adjusted. So he's not at that level to where the Jam and Hankerson were. He's going to get there. I think he's going to be a really good back. But as of right now, that fall off, it hurts the offense.
Yeah, especially when the defense is stacking the box. Digital Dan says, I feel like the receivers are also dropping a ton of easy passes. And I think that we've seen that as well. Not getting any help.
How much do you think, and again, this is all just for conversation because it's a bye week. How much do you think this team is changed with a healthy Jimmy Volson?
Yeah, I mean, from what we saw from Jimmy at the end of last year, and he looked like he could go out and compete. I mean, he was making some pretty big plays against a Notre Dame secondary that has 2 really good players that are still in college and are going to be first, second, third round draft picks. So he's another one of those bigger bodied guys too, 6'2", 6'3", that Oregon State's lacked. I mean, throwing him out there with Trent Walker, Jeremiah Hoga, Clemens, it would have definitely helped.
Why aren't we seeing more Darius Clemens and Taz Reddicks?
Yeah, it does certainly seem like Oregon State has a very clear receiver 1 in Trent Walker. And my thing is, I just don't think any of them have been consistent enough.
Yeah. That's been such a thing where receivers have just disappeared for games at a time.
And it's not just a this year thing either. It's been really ever since Isaiah Hodgins left. There's never been a consistent. I mean, yeah, we had Anthony and Silas, but they were never consistent 100-yard guys. I mean, Trent's going to go out and get you 7-8 catches, but outside of that, this year it's been. I mean, one game you see Jermaine Terry pop off, then Jeremiah Noga, then it's just no consistency outside of Trent Walker.
So another big area that had the Lodge just buzzing was special teams play. And what do you do for players that keep running the ball out instead of just taking the touch back?
My bigger concern special teams wise is the blocking.
Yeah.
Not on kickoff returns, but more necessarily protection. I mean, we've seen 2 block kicks now, at least 1 block punt, I believe, maybe even 2. And it will maybe happen once, but if it happens once, it needs to get fixed. Yeah. I mean, it's crucial. Special teams is what makes or breaks games, and we've seen this happen repeatedly now. And it's room for concern that the adjustment hasn't happened. I mean, Cal almost blocked one last week, I think, too. It's concerning.
It's tough too, and it's like, I mean, Zach Carr doesn't look. I don't know. We get into this question. Zach Carr doesn't look particularly confident returning the ball. So I don't know if it's on the return guy, but I don't really know how much that falls on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I also question that too. Is like because that is, I mean, they're taught to know what to look for with the seam or to know, and it just seems like it's stymied so quickly around the 10-yard line. you know?
Yeah.
I do
it's
think one
blocking and
thing
it's,
is-
go ahead, Jay.
I think as Oregon State fans, we've been kind of blessed with two really good return men the last 2-3 years with Anthony Golden, Silas Holden. Like those guys are like the elites of the elite returning wise. And it was silly. It's silly to think that with a redshirt freshman, that production is going to stick. Like it's pretty rare for a redshirt freshman to come out and average 32 yards a pop, returning kicks and punts.
Yeah. And I do think there is a little bit of that wanting to be the guy that helps make a big play to help, inject a boost to the team. Uncle Filthy said, I'd really like to see us get Sala in space and let him work. I think he could really get some production and with motion and not just making him run into the line. What do you guys think? Is it more just him kind of getting accustomed to, the speed of the game? Coach Ford kind of talked about that a couple weeks ago.
And Cal is also a really good run defense too.
Yeah.
Like Justin Wilcox is a great defensive coach. They have a really stout defensive line up front. They had two really good linebackers, one who didn't play, but they really have a really good defense. So it's tough to ask a freshman to go out there, and I think with time he'll just get better and better.
Yeah, and by the way, that's the best handle I've ever seen, Uncle Filthy. So that's fantastic, or the worst. I don't know. I think that like creativity in the run game is like every offensive coordinator looks like a genius when you're running the ball well, or they look disciplined and good at sticking with the script and not getting ahead of their skis or trying to get too cute. Everybody looks good when we're running the ball well.
Yeah,
that's football. So.
And that's an interesting point too, because the game threads are always an interesting dynamic in the Lodge of BeaverBlitz because everybody's going off of emotion of the here and now. So it's basically like you're sitting with your buddies at the game and you're just talking, and the emotion during the game. So a few weeks ago it was Oregon State needs a new DC. Now this week it's Oregon State needs a new OC. How much of the? I mean, honestly, it's a completely new roster, a completely new coaching staff that has been decimated, especially on the defensive side with injuries. I even pulled that up just because I know Ty wanted to kind of go back. Who might we see in 2 weeks? But I mean, these guys need time to recruit. This was also a staff that put together a roster really kind of in January. Yeah, it was a piecemeal. So it's always interesting to watch the game threads. No, it's not time to get rid of Keith Hayward or Ryan Gunderson.
No, 100%. I think, and it's like one of those things too, that when a quarterback plays well and creates something within the offense that is comfortable in the offense, they can create. They look stellar and they get too much credit. They can get too much credit. Whereas if they make a play, I mean, I said this and this is oversimplified, but like it takes so many moving parts to complete a pass. You know what I mean? So if you have a failure in two of the four elements, like it's gonna be a mess, But
this goes back, and I feel like I've said this year after year. This is where Oregon State's offense, I would like to see them do some quicker hits. Do some little screens. Kind of like an Oregon offense. Dylan Gabriel's just basically doing dump off passes, but they're getting the job done. I think Oregon State they have some injuries on the offensive line. There's injury to Jam. Receivers are struggling to get open. Okay, so instead of having to have all those moving parts be succinct, okay, let's start just doing some, the high percentage shots, some bubble screens and some fly sweeps and those kind of things.
I think part of that's almost a lack of explosiveness at the receiver spot. I mean, the Beavers don't have an Anthony Gould, Silas Bolden, like those quick guys. Like they have really Zach Card as a quick guy who can get that yak. But outside of that, I could see David Wells potentially getting more involved in that short screen game. But Trent Walker works a lot better as an intermediate route guy. Clemens is more of a deep intermediate guy. Like they really aren't built to catch screen passes. And I mean, like you said, like you see what the Ducks do with guys like Tez Johnson, just guys who get the ball in space quick and they're just electric with the ball in their hands. I really just don't think the Beavers have a guy like that.
But Trent Walker, in my opinion, shouldn't be. He should be more just a possession guy. And Oregon State is trying to make him a deep threat.
I was going to say that too. I mean, Trent certainly, and all love and credit to Trent. Trent's made people miss because I think he's a kid with great balance and he's a strong kid. So he has broken tackles consistently. But we've challenged the edge of a defense with Trent.
Yeah.
Like we've run tunnel screens with Trent. Like we run him on different variations of, you know, trying to get him to the edge, where it's like, I mean, we're asking a lot of Trent right now.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean?
And,
Yeah.
And Uncle Filthy just said Walker's playing a lot like a tight end half the time. But I think they're asking too much of him. So we'll talk about that in a little bit about recruiting and the Beavers' needs and what they have coming in. Let's not forget about the defense, though. Ty, why don't you start us your thoughts on the defensive performance?
I don't know. I'm not a defensive guru by any stretch, man. And again, I want to wear orange colored glasses and think that we're going to have a get right game the next 2 games. It did look like, from my layman's point of view, that there were bad angles and maybe kids didn't really come out of the locker room ready to play or get off the plane ready to play. And I hate saying that because I hate being part of the negativity. I really do. But whereas I thought we were scrappy and maybe a little bit down because of incidentals or injuries, this was a game where I was like, oh, shoot. Like, did you guys absorb the energy from the Cal Stadium? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, that is something I have heard from coaches in the past, that playing at Cal and Stanford is tough because there is no energy. Sure. Eric F. in the comments, oops, that's the wrong one, sorry. Eric F. said it all starts up front.
100%.
It
does. And we can keep beating this dead horse, but we don't have a lot up front. We don't have a lot up front prior to the healthy people on the roster, the healthy people coming out of fall camp. So yeah, you're right. So maybe that is just the major ailment of this team right now, you know?
Yeah.
Tackling's been concerning.
Yeah.
Well. Tackling has been concerning. Angles, there's Uncle Filthy. Pursuit angles have been absolute garbage all year.
Another thing is the Beavers have really lacked a pass rush. There's really been only 2 guys, Nico Taylor and Oluwamatoshu, and Zakai Size when Size has been healthy, but he's missed the past 2 or 3 games.
He's missed 3 games now, which
3, last 3.
Yeah.
That's my big. I mean, we can talk about the special teams coordinator, the OC, or the DC, and I mean, like my brother said, Jake, the podcast he missed, he goes, it takes a lot to strengthen a hamstring. You know what I mean? Whatever, like, well, however that manifests for a team or not, but like, how much of this is not on the strength coach? I'm not suggesting that. I don't want to be that guy. However, how do we fix that? Because that might be, we don't know these coaches in game and pre-game ability to prepare is like without, you know, a full deck of cards. So
yeah,
I mean, the Beavers have really only had those 3 guys and Thomas Collins as consistent pass rushing threats this year. And I mean, it's hard for the secondary to slow down a passing attack if the quarterback can just sit back there, because the Beavers have no interior push right now.
Yeah, 0. And then it makes the DB's job even harder too.
Yeah, it just makes it tougher for, especially when you have young guys like Exodus Ayers, who's held his own. But I mean, it's tough to get going because there's no push. I mean, there's no interior presence at all, at least in the pass rush. And Oregon State made Hernando Mendoza look like Johnny Manziel. I mean, he just was running all over the place, carving them up. You just sitting in the pocket, and it was just one of the worst. I mean, the outside of Collins, I don't think a single Beaver defensive lineman has a sack this year.
Yeah, and we're still without Collins. So, yeah, when your defensive line, like I said, is a walk-on in Luke Levengood, you've moved Andy Alfieri over to help kind of shore things up.
And Sikorsky too. Yeah, right? Dylan, saying his last name right.
Yeah, Dylan Sikorsky.
He didn't play last week, but he had played against UNLV.
Yeah. I mean, it's just rough. So, I mean, you look, I'm just going through this was the list I made a couple weeks ago, where by our preseason, like right before the season, when we had our projected 2 deep for defense, I have 17 guys that are not playing right now. I'm trying to think if there's any. So Pomea is back. So make that 16. But defensive line, I mean, Hickle's out for the season. Norris is out for the season. Kelsey Howard is out for the season. Griffiths is no longer on the team. Thomas Collins has not played in 3 weeks. Ty G. Hill And we haven't got any of them back, except for Pomea, who's a redshirt freshman. Linebacker, Saiz has missed 3 weeks. Jerry's Goodman was back or did play this past week. That is game 4 for him. Aiden Sullivan and Cord Shaw did not play. And then your defensive backs, you're still without Jaden Robinson. I do expect him to be back in 2 weeks for San Jose State. But, Noble Thomas is out for the season. Kobe Singleton is out. Marion York. Jaheim Patterson, he was in, right? He did play.
Yeah.
Tackles.
So they've got a couple guys back.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then Uncle Filthy in the chat. So Olu's playing with a torn labrum. I know Samisi Saluni's been dealing with a pretty bad ankle sprain that he's been playing on. Guys are beat up. Those aren't excuses. I mean, that just happens, in football. But
but I can never remember a season where it was like this.
No,
Ever.
No.
Ever. I mean,
the positive, because I always try to be the glass half full, is Jake and I a week ago in the press box, Jake had put together kind of his depth chart for next year. And these guys are just getting tons of experience.
Yeah, again, I think we talked about this earlier on, but remember that Riley year from 2011 to 2012, where we jumped from I believe it was 3 and 9 and 3 or 9 and 4. Right, that's right. We lost to Texas, 9 and 4. And you saw the maturation of a Brandon Cooks. Storm Woods became more of a role player. Marcus Wheaton was built on an already good season. That offensive line grew a lot. So maybe you see that flip. Maybe. You hope, when we talk recruiting, I mean, because you guys follow it on an athlete to athlete per basis. You guys do such an amazing job. Get your BeaverBlitz membership. But that's my question to you guys is like, let's talk about when we get there. When we get there, I got a question.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and just move on to recruiting. We're going to take a quick break for the podcast, side of it, and then we'll be back and we're going to talk recruiting, especially with Jake, get Jake's expertise. So we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the damn podcast. We just had to wrap up the Cal discussion, but let's start talking. We've gone through personnel. We've gone through Oregon State's injuries. We've gone through the fact that the team basically had to be kind of pieced together in the month of January last year. Let's just talk, Jake. I'm gonna kind of turn this over to you a little bit. I'll throw you questions, but in the past week, Oregon State's picked up 3 new commitments in quarterback Tristan Tia, edge rusher Nick Fisher, and edge rusher today, Blue Dantzler. So Tia is out of Northern California, Nick Fisher's out of the Houston area, and Dantzler's out of Chandler, Arizona. Give me a quick rundown on those guys, if you would. Let's start with Tristan Tia.
Yeah, so Tristan Tia, 3-star quarterback out of Pleasanton, California, just the same hometown as Sean Mannion, one of the better Oregon State quarterbacks in history. He's a guy who Oregon State's liked for a long time. He didn't play a lot of his junior year because of an injury. He played about a quarter to a half of the season, I believe. Oregon State didn't offer originally in the spring because they wanted to see him throw some more during an actual game in the fall, and he's done fantastic. He's got prior to his game last Saturday, he had almost 2,000 yards passing and 19 touchdowns and another 500 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. So he's a dual threat guy. Good frame, 6'2", 180, probably bulk up to 6'2", 210. He's a guy that is going to come in and at this rate, he could compete right away. It's an Oregon State quarterback room that's got a whole lot of uncertainty. He was one of the hottest rising prospects on the West Coast. Utah actually offered him while he was on his Oregon State visit, but he still committed to Oregon State. He's cousins with DJ Uiagalelei as well. So he's got some elite athleticism bloodlines. So he's a guy who could be one to watch as soon as next season.
And Oregon State really need it, that quarterback.
Yeah.
It does speak volumes. So if you don't follow recruiting and you kind of wonder what Ryan Gunderson, kind of his evaluation skills, I will say that the Beavers' original guy they went all in on, Jaren Sagapolotele. Jake, did I say that right? Kind of right?
Jaren Sagapolotele. Yeah.
So Oregon, it basically goes down to Oregon State and Cal. He chose Cal, but within the last week, he has picked up Oregon and Georgia offers. So I don't expect that Cal commitment to stick. He
kind of reminds me of Childs, like the way his
he does remind me of Childs, but
he was when he visited, and now he's a top 100 player, just like Aiden.
Yeah. So I mean, it should give Beaver fans maybe a little hope. Tristan Tia is one when we talked to Brandon Huffman. He loves him. Said has a ton of upside. You know, he was injured last year, so but he did watch a 7-on-7 with a former or a Power 5 coach,
SEC coach.
And who was there watching his kid, not there to and basically said he'd offer him on the spot. So this is a kid who I think has a huge upside. Bigger kid. That's been a knock on Oregon State's quarterbacks aside from Ben is just the height. So Tia comes in with 6'2", 6'3". They picked up then last week edge rusher Nick Fisher out of Texas, originally committed to Texas State. And before you freak out about Texas State, I'd like to remind you that's where James Rogers was committed to. So Texas just has such an abundance of talent. Tell me about Nicholas Fisher.
Yeah, I mean, I love this commitment. He's actually Oregon State's highest rated commit now, I believe.
High 3-star, 88.
He's a point above Trey Glasper and Jake Hornwell and Tristan Tia. But he's a kid who Oregon State, they kind of kept an eye on him at the start of the season. He's kind of under-recruited for being in such a big football area. He's got great size, great length. I believe the plan is to bulk him up and play defensive line. Checks in at 6'4", 250 right now. Can hopefully get that frame up to 270, 280, 290. He's a guy who might need a year to put on weight, but if he's talented enough, I mean, this is an Oregon State defensive line that's struggled, so it's not out of their own a possibility to see him on the field early as well.
He's got an 81.25 inch wingspan.
6'9". Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I love this pickup. I think he's gonna have a really bright future.
Yeah, I agree. Have you seen any film, Ty, or have you not watched film yet?
And I didn't even know about Blue. Say his last name again, Jake.
Blue Dantzler.
Yeah.
He just committed today at noon.
I know. And I remember checking in earlier today, and I got busy with work that stay tuned at the lodge for announcement. And then I forgot right up until we got the podcast. So I was like trying to be like, who was it? But yeah.
So the great thing about Blue Dantzler, and so I've talked to a former Beaver player who actually knows someone on the Bosch coaching staff who said this kid is not only an amazing kid, but has huge upside. Super smart. He's enrolling early. He'll be here in January. Jake, you've had a chance to talk to him. What are your thoughts on Blue Dantzler?
Yeah, I mean, he's a dynamic pass rusher. He's a little undersized right now at 6'2", 225, but if you can, get those first 6 months from January to June in the weight room, put on 10 to 15 pounds, that could go a really long way. I don't know. The last pass rusher Oregon State picked out of Chandler, Arizona, was named Hamilcar Rashid, and he was pretty good. So
he was pretty good.
He's got some pretty big shoes to fill there, but he's a talented kid, a super nice kid. I mean, really, all three of these kids were great to talk to throughout this process. So Oregon State got three first class people as well as three really exciting players, and I'm excited to see these guys get on campus and compete for a job next year.
So Fisher is not enrolling early. What about Tia? He is not. Okay.
At least as of now. I mean,
as of now, okay. But yeah, so Dantzler will be, and I think that's huge because I think that just it will. It gets him in the weight room. It gets him a training table to put on the weight. But
I believe as of now, I think Jeremiah Ioane I know is enrolling early.
Okay.
Jake Normile I know is enrolling early.
Okay.
I believe Jesse Myers is. I'm not confident.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one.
I believe Trey Glasper is, and then I know Dantzler is.
Okay. So looking this class, the overall ranking on 24/7 is ranked 71, which they're sitting at 16 commitments. That will more than likely go up as they fill out this class. I'm looking to they have a quarterback, a single running back, a receiver, 2 offensive line, 1 tight end, 4 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker, 4 defensive backs, and a special teams player. this weekend or after the bye, San Jose State is going to be an offensive line heavy recruiting weekend. I believe there's at least 4 guys confirmed now that will be coming. There's another one, so I'll tell you about that one later.
No, every day.
There's 4 now, but that can change, right?
Tell me about it.
I'll tell you too off the pod because this can change. But we will be updating BeaverBlitz with that information as well. But where do you see? I love the fact that there's 4 defensive linemen, 2 offensive linemen. I think they need 2 more offensive linemen?
Yeah, I was gonna say they need offensive line.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be shocked to see another tight end. Wouldn't be shocked to see another receiver. And then I think they're gonna hit the JUCO ranks a little bit as well. So maybe a handful of those guys as well, particularly at the defensive line.
Yeah, Eric F in the chat. So again, if you guys are watching this, jump in the chat and post questions. Eric F said, I still have incredible confidence in this coaching staff. Can we talk about how impressive it is to recruit this well with the turmoil of the program? That's
what's up, Eric. That's what's up, dude.
They've done a hell of a job. And again, Trent Bray surrounded himself with, in my opinion, an elite recruiting staff. These guys are still getting pretty highly regarded kids in the midst of a 3-game slide and a conference relegation. It is what it is. It is a relegation.
Yeah.
Guys like, Thomas Ford and Rod Chance and AJ Cooper, those 3 are, and Keith Hayward as well, are usually, but those 3 in particular are usually the ones who the kids talk about. And I think those 3 in particular have already done a lot recruiting wise.
And what you also hear from these guys after their visits is how, they do the love of Oregon State from this coaching staff. These guys all talk about the atmosphere and the care factor that the coaches seem to bring. Okay, so Jake, sorry, Ty, I'm not trying to ignore you, but Jake is our resident recruiting guy. So
I don't know what I'm talking about.
So Jake, who are you? Give me a guy that you're super excited to see here in Corvallis this next year.
I've already touched on Tristan Tia. He's one of them. I'm going to go with Trey Glasper. He's a guy who I think is really going to turn some heads. He's a super athletic kid, talented.
He's playing both ways right now. He's
really
Green Valley,
receiver.
Henderson, Nevada, Green Valley High School. Oregon State is recruiting him as a DB, correct?
He's a really good receiver. He's committed to Oregon State as a corner. I wouldn't be opposed to trying him out as a receiver based off the current, lack of outside of Trent Walker, lack of a consistent guy. He's got good size. I believe he's 6'2", 6'3", $170. He's going to be a guy who I think can contribute early, especially if he enrolls early, which I believe he is. So Trey Glasper is a name to know.
Steve Donnie, how highly regarded are these recruits? The majority of them don't have P4 offers. A lot of them do, though.
Trey Glasper,
Cal,
Jake Manuel, Tia, Cody Signer.
And then these are the type of kids, too, that
Elijah Washington committed to us over Arizona and Cal.
Yeah.
Glass had a Power 5, Power 4.
With all due respect, I have not seen evidence of that. And
Yeah.
I don't know that we're battling 6 other Power 4 programs for it, but they're definitely there. Yeah.
Yeah. And these are the type of commits, recruits that I will tell you, year in and year out, these are the guys that, are committed to Oregon State, and come November, December, their other programs are going to start looking to try to pull them. So,
we saw it happen with XSAs last year.
Yeah. That is just the reality of these mid to high 3-star recruits. They're going to be the ones that, and so this is called hang on and get these guys signed and get them on campus. But
Jermod McCoy had 0 Power 5 offers, and now he's under consideration for, maybe even the number 1 cornerback off the draft board in 2026.
So, yeah, he's had a good year. Okay, so Jake, who in this list of players do you feel is the most underrated recruit that Oregon State fans should be keeping an eye on?
Underrated recruit. That's a good question. I think Corday Glass is a guy who he had a really good start to his season. He's been a little banged up, hasn't played a lot lately. Oregon State, they've had really a lot of true freshmen see action at that position over the past, ever since. I mean, really ever. But he has stats right now.
How about Jake Normile, highest rated offensive lineman on the board?
I think Jake Normile is going to be a guy who can contribute. He's enrolling early. Good frame, good size. He's playing center in college, but he's playing tackle right now. It's excited to see him. I mean, I just checked Glass's stats. He's been banged up, but he had 566 yards, including the 205-yard game, and they're undefeated, and none of their games have been close. So he's not playing a whole lot. So to get those stats is impressive.
How about Sean Craig? He was at the UNLV game as well. Yeah,
Craig's a guy who's coming to Oregon State as a safety, but because of injuries on his team, he's had to play corner this year. Okay. So he's playing a little out of position, but Oregon State likes to cross-train those guys at corner and safety. So it's good for him to kind of get a head start on that. So getting Craig, he plays for a talented team that plays a really tough schedule. I mean, they're one of the most talented teams in the state of Nevada, but they're like 4-6, 4-7, and just because they're playing a lot of California teams, Utah teams, they travel a lot, play some really good teams. So he's used to playing some high-level players, all playing against 4- and 5-star recruits. He's held his own, and he's one of 3 Oregon State commits on that team with Jeremiah Galwani, who I think is already a fan favorite of Oregon State fans, and he's just going to continue to build on that. And then Skylar Jackson, who hasn't played this year yet, but he's got some really good genes and good bloodlines. So excited to see all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, Ioana is one that you guys will love. He reminds me a little bit of Kelsey Howard as far as his being online and being very vocal in his support. And then, Jackson, Skylar Jackson.
Where does he project Skylar Jackson?
I believe running back.
Yeah, I think they have him as a running back.
Yeah, he's committed as an athlete. I think he's more of a running back.
Yeah, Jake mentioned his bloodlines. I mean, that is Steven Jackson's son.
He's got a good size on him already. I mean, he's 6'1", 205 right now.
Okay.
Which would be the biggest out of, I think Hatcher's just under that. So he'd be the biggest back on the team that's not named Jake Reichel.
Sure.
So with 16 already in the boat, how many more preps do you see potentially, Jake? And then how many JUCO/transfer portal?
I think 3 to 5 more high school recruits. And then a lot of it, I think, depends on the portal. What happens there with how many guys leave Oregon State, which, I mean, is an unknown. I think you're going to see at least 7, which is just kind of the normal. Like, it's not because Oregon State's doing anything wrong, but there's going to be guys who leave because they aren't hitting playing time. There's going to be guys who leave to get more NIL money. There's nothing Oregon State can do to prevent that. So I'm expecting at least, 5, 7 to 10, maybe even more. So I do think those spots are going to be filled by portal guys and JUCO guys. So it'll be probably a pretty even split. Haven't confirmed from the staff what to expect more of if they go heavier with the portal, heavier JUCO. But that'll start to become more of a reality here in the next month. I mean, as we saw last year, the Beavers went portal. Like in December, they picked up Jarius Goodman, Sullivan, York, Patterson, all in the last 2 to 3 months of the signing period. Granted, it was a little different with half your class gone, but
it was a little dire there. Anything? I guess we already kind of went through there. So recruiting, definitely stick with BeaverBlitz.com. Jake has done a fantastic job. We have Brandon Huffman, Blair Angulo, Greg Biggins, part of the national team, and just appreciate all of the information that we get as well. So Southern Beaver, we only have one damn question this week. Southern Beaver asked, J-Rob is back after the bye. And then he talked about any other anticipated returns. I think we kind of talked about that. I keep waiting. Saiz, last I heard, was a concussion protocol. So hopefully he's back sooner than later. And then Collins hopefully is back. Hoping. I mean, those 2 I know are not out for season. So hopefully that happens. And then they ask if Dylan Black is going to return or is he out for the season. So Nick Daschle today in the Oregonian had a piece on him. It was already in the lodge that Dylan Black had been battling cancer and that, he kept that very much under wraps. His family actually came in and addressed that in the lodge. But today Nick Dashel had a story that he did battle testicular cancer, and it ended up being stage 3, and he finished up chemo. So amazing news.
Rang the bell last week.
Rang the bell last week, cancer-free. So that is probably the best news of the day, of the month.
Of the season.
Because that is such good news that and what a tough battle. But hopefully, he was felt surrounded by his brothers on the team, coaches, and I don't expect him back this year. But he is applying for a medical hardship. So
hopefully
the Beavers will have him back next year. So Dylan Black, your family, congratulations on beating that. Everybody's been praying for you. So like you said, best news of the season.
Heck yeah, man.
And as he said in the article, DVD, former director of personnel, was the one that told them as freshmen to always check. So I know women, it's always a huge thing to make sure you do your self-breast exams. Guys, do your exams too. Jake's embarrassed now, but it's important, guys. So
I'll make sure to give myself a breast exam.
Yes, give yourself a breast exam, Ty. So yeah.
Hey, some more local boys, and I might.
Anyway, it's important, guys. So just stay healthy, everyone. So guys, we have a bye week. We'll be back. I don't know if we're going to be back next week. We'll talk about whether we want to preview San Jose State. San Jose State is a 12:30 kick. It is family weekend. So I think Jake's going to be hanging out with his dad it used to be Dad's weekend.
It is Dad's weekend.
It's Dad's weekend. Okay, it's still Dad's weekend. But Eric and I will be up in the press box. I'm sure I'll see Jake at some point.
I'll be on the field before the game.
Okay, so we will see him. Ty, are you going to be at the game 2 weeks?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. And anything we need Ty, you have a comedy show coming up.
Oh, yeah. Angie gave me permission to do this. I hate pumping up my stuff. But the night after the Boise State game, I'm going to be in Boise at the Mad Swede. I'll put, with Angie's blessing, I'll put in the watch. But I'll be
absolutely.
At the Mad Swede. It's right downtown. I'm going to be at the game with friends and family. And so, yeah, come on down. And I'm pretty filthy, pretty dirty. So fair warning.
There might be language is what you're telling us?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Jake's wearing his Clodfelter's hat. You working it all this week? Can anybody come down and see you? Clodfelter's? You want to pump that up?
I'll just come in. It'll be a fun weekend for Halloween weekend.
Fun. Oh, that is right. It's Halloween weekend. My only thing is make sure you're a member of BeaverBlitz. And if you didn't know, I'm also a realtor. So there's my plug too. I guess we never do plugs, but I'm a realtor. So if you want to talk football and help you buy or sell a house, give me a ring. I'm your gal. So, guys, thanks for joining us. This was actually longer than I thought we'd go. We had a lot to talk about. So hope everyone's feeling a little bit about that Cal weekend. Jake tells us to flush it. So we're going to flush it. We're going to go enjoy Halloween weekend. And then we're going to be back next week for another episode of the Damn Podcast.